Hey everyone, here we are. I'm Martin, and
I'm Shelly.
that's Shelly. She's trying to get a fire going in the wood stove. So, yeah, tonight we're here, 7 o'clock. It's live, and we're going to be talking about some basic emergency preps. Basic emergency prepping.
Okay.
Did you give up on the fire?
No.
Oh, it's going? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got
It's going. All right, we see a couple of people. Hey, Ken. Good to see you here. And we have no idea how long this is going to go. I don't think it's probably going to go quite as long as some of the other ones have. Talking about basic emergency preparations. And, you know, I was trying to figure out last week what exactly to kind of discuss. And, you know, those fires out in LA kind of brought a lot of the prepping things front and center. And, you know, honestly, there's a lot of, did you just open a pocket beer? No. Well, she might have. You never know. But anyway, they think you got something hidden back there. Anyway, yeah, as we're watching LA burn to the ground, you know, it got to reminding me, you know, we have become a little bit more preparedness minded here in Southwest Missouri at our place. After we saw the Hurricane Helene aftermath out in where was that? North Carolina, I guess it was, and the surrounding areas around there, and then the fires out in Los Angeles right now. And you know, I don't mean to kind of jump on those disasters and use that as a platform to launch off into some kind of a tirade about prepping, but both of those were kind of unique in a way, and both of them to me look like if I were there in either of those situations, I'm not sure that there's anything that I could have done that would have given me the kind of preparation I needed to withstand or survive one of those two events, because both of them are so catastrophic. And so it got us to thinking quite a bit differently about how we, you know, prepare for emergencies. And here in Missouri, so I can really only talk about personally she's drinking one of those fizzy waters.
He asked if it was beer. You know me, I don't drink that. You silly guy.
But it tastes just about as bad.
No.
So anyway, look at Adrian's laughing at it. So I got to thinking, you know, just to recap a little bit on that Hurricane Helene thing and then the fire deal, you know, that region has been used to, you know, the occasional hurricane making its way up through there and dumping a lot of rain. But for whatever reason, you know, it's just so much of it at one time in one place there that I mean, what people had been used to as just being normal flooding turned into catastrophic flooding, and I mean, it was washing houses right off their foundations and and just washing them downstream. So whatever you had done, you know, I think on a property like that was probably pointless, because you know, when the house and the ground and the everything doesn't survive, then, you know, if you were stocked up and kind of prepared for those kind of an events, and then all of a sudden the whole entire property was just wiped clean and washed downstream, you know, I'm not sure that there's anything that you could have really done about that.
Well, it was a hurricane, and it was something that was unexpected. Yeah. It wasn't something that.
But at the same time, hurricanes make their way up through there.
Well, yeah, but
on occasion, but
I don't know if they've ever done that.
No, I don't recall that they've ever done anything quite that drastic, severe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, looking at the fires out there, you know, they're having this fire right in the place where they always have fires. Okay, the wind comes blowing down the mountain this time of year and catches fires, and they burn up a lot of stuff, and then they get put out. And this is the one that they're like talking like there's never been anything like this before, where it's just burning tens of thousands of homes and buildings and businesses and things like that. And so what do you do to prepare for that other than just get out of town as fast as you can? And so I suppose that the whole idea of the bug out bags and all of that is one thing, but when it happens as fast as it does, I'm not even sure that is completely adequate, and it certainly leaves nothing for you to come back to.
Well, I mean, I think a bug out bag is good in case you do have that. I mean, I'm sure the people that had bug out bags were ready.
Yeah, well, maybe, and maybe not. They just had to get out so fast.
That's something to think about. I mean, does everybody have a bug out bag?
Yeah,
in case that happens.
Our goal for coming down here, which brings me kind of to our point. Our goal for coming down here where we were at was to kind of create an environment down here where you didn't have to, leave in an evacuation in an emergency notice kind of a situation. So our thought process for doing that has been kind of brought into question a little bit with these two events. And so I'm rethinking it, but I'm not sure that we have really changed our plans here because of it, other than it's just giving us more things to think about. And so, as we kind of look at basic emergency preparedness, the first thing I think that you would have to think about is your environment, where your location, where you're moving to, and what kind of risks are associated with that.
That's a good idea.
Because they have, I mean, Hurricane Helene, for example, people had probably been withstanding those hurricane remnants that have been coming up there for 100 years and never had the kind of event like they had this last time. And so a lot of them were built close enough to water that when the water came up in a normal flood, it really wouldn't touch them. And but then when water comes up in this Hurricane Helene style flood, it not only touches them, but it washes everything they've got downstream into the ocean, or I suppose eventually it gets into the ocean. But
it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, too. It covers a lot of ground. It just takes everything away. I mean, there's I've looked at pictures here recently out there where they show a before and after. And it's like before, there's a nice little road going down through town and businesses and homes on either side of the road. And, the after picture is nothing but a big ditch. I mean, it took everything.
That's so sad.
And so, as you look at an environment like that, where, choose your land or your location wisely. I mean, that would be the first, the first thing that I would begin to consider is, your location. And
we lived in a place one time where we were right next to the lake.
Yeah.
And we did get flooded. How many times? I can't even remember.
A lot. And it was a business location. It was really kind of the best business location in town, but it was also the closest to the lake, or it was a lake, but it was really a river. And we were only, our footprint of our property and our business was only about 3 feet above the water line. So whenever, what do we got? Oh, shit, Adrian sending stuff. So whenever we had, a real heavy rain, we would expect to get flooded. And most of the times it was a minor thing. The water would come up just into our buildings, and our buildings were on the lower level. They were cement block and cement, and we'd cleared everything out. So it really didn't affect it that much. But if we had a big flood where it would come way into them, then that was a real pain. I mean, we had to disconnect the electricity a couple of times, and it was just a lot of trouble. And because of the location, I mean, would I do that again? Would I buy that kind of a property again? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we put up with it, and it was the best business location in town. I mean, there was no question about that. But part of that was because of the proximity to the water. And so it left us vulnerable for that. But then, when you look at the hurricane or the fires out in LA,
that is different.
Well, and I mean, they're in a very desirable part of the state out there, mountainous area looking over the ocean. And so, a lot of wealth right there. And so they all want to build right there. And, but the flip side of it is, now that you're there, you're going to have to deal with what's going to happen with the Santa Ana winds when they start roaring down the mountainside. And this time around, it caught them. I mean, it caught them big. And so, but again, that same thing would apply. choose your location wisely if you're worried about things from a preparedness point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I don't think that they probably are. I mean, it's just one of the things where, that's the most exclusive place to own a home, in the whole area. And so, everybody wants to live there. But it's just, that's one of those risks where, you know what, if you're going to live there, sooner or later, there's going to be a fire coming roaring down through there. And in this case, it was one that nobody's been able to stop so far.
Yeah. And up north, I mean, you all have to think about the cold weather
mm-hmm.
and snow. And so your preparedness probably would look different than somebody in the South. But still, when you go somewhere out in your vehicle, you have a blanket, you've got stuff to keep you warm in case your car stops. But
so
it depends on where you're at too.
I think,
mm-hmm.
We have friends up in North Minnesota that, they know that if they can bury their water line 6 feet deep, that they're going to be okay. All depends on where you live. Yes. What kind of natural disasters could happen there? Yep. And it does depend on where you live. And
mm-hmm.
so, even at 6 feet deep, our friends had their water lines freeze for like 4 months before they thawed back out.
Yeah. And that was
because it
when
got really, really cold.
When it really got cold.
And so those are all kind of things that are sort of natural disaster sort of related. And,
mm-hmm.
Here in Missouri, we, I can speak from experience here because, we chose our ice storms and tornadoes where you are. Yeah. And that's right. And we just had a threat of an ice storm last week. And so we had to go around and prepare a little bit for that. But
we knew that the ice wasn't going to come, so we didn't take down a couple trees. But we still need to look at them because if another one comes, we've got to be prepared for that.
And that's part of what we consider when we're here. We know that right here where we're in Southwest Missouri, and we know that the things that hit us, occasionally there's a wildfire around here, but they're never really big enough to be that catastrophic, and they usually get dealt with pretty quickly. But we do have, every year we can expect to lose our power from ice storms or snowstorms. Right. And we don't get that much snow. I mean, we got more snow this last week than we've probably had in the last 3 years. And it was like 6 inches, and it's already almost gone. And that's been 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so snow is, comes and goes, but ice is pretty catastrophic around here. It will strand you to start with because there's so many hills around here and mountains that when ice gets on the road, this area is not capable of dealing with it. So extreme here in South Texas every year is very dangerous. Yeah. And,
mm-hmm.
and you guys down there, were you there when they lost the power there in the middle of winter a few years ago? Because that looked pretty intense down there. But so around here, you've got the ice, which will strand you. It will take out the power lines, and you're stuck wherever you're at because you can't go anywhere. Yep, but we were okay. And good. And so you get stranded where you're at, and you've got no power. And so, just thinking through the process, we like it here in Southwest Missouri. And I know, Ken, you're looking at kind of Northwest Arkansas, same thing.
We're on the border of Arkansas, practically.
And so they had, because we like it here and we like the terrain and we got family here and we got business here and things like that in this general area, this is where we wanted to settle. And we knew from the, I guess, past history of just knowing this place that ice storms are going to get us in the wintertime, and tornadoes are potential in the springtime and the summertime. So city water. So we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
There was, but in choosing this area, the next thing we have to do is, okay, we've chosen this area. This area is where we want to be. And what do we have to do to be ready for those kind of events when they happen? And so even though we are not really ready for a lot of them yet, we've been working towards that readiness for ever since we've been here 3 years, a little over 3 years. And the first one that we wanted to deal with was, we know every year we're going to lose power, and we're not reliant upon the grid down here. We do have grid services here, but we're not reliant on them. Our main source is the solar panels and the batteries and the inverter and all the stuff that goes with that. And so we can lose electricity and it really doesn't affect us. We've got a video uploading tomorrow on YouTube that kind of deals with our stove back over here. And we, even with that, we looked at, when we were shopping for a stove, it's like, well, what kind of a stove do we get? And I mean, pellet stoves are very attractive and appealing because they're extremely efficient, but they rely on electricity. They rely on pellets.
Yeah.
And we don't have a pellet tree down here. So we just burn raw wood, out of the woods out here. And so we needed something that was other than pellet fired. And so we've got enough wood stacked up right now. If we didn't cut anything.
That's always a good thing. You need to think of your heat source, your water source, your food source, and your shelter. Them are all the things that you need to think about.
So as we begin to prepare for, living here and building what we were building here, we have lost power. I think now we're up to about 8 times that we've lost power since we've been here. Most of them are just a little glitchy, out for a few minutes and back on, but one of them was several hours, or a couple of them were several hours. And so, we don't even really, because of the inverter, batteries, solar stuff that we've got here, we didn't even really notice that the power was out, for one thing, the grid power. And then because our stove does not rely on any kind of electricity, it never gets cold unless we just don't go out and stick a piece of wood in the fire. So,
now, Adrian had brought up a thing about the water. And, we are on city water yet, because when
it's rural water, but that's basically city water.
Yeah. So if the power went out, we still get water.
Well, it's because there's a big reservoir of water.
Yeah.
And it would go, and they've got generators there to keep their well pumps going. So it would have to go beyond kind of the first and second level of disaster before we would end up losing the water. And but that's always a possibility. So at some point when we moved down here, we wanted to get a well, but the well drillers were like 7 months out on their
it was during
drilling,
COVID.
and we did not have time to wait for that. We needed to have water on the property,
right
and
away.
there was rural water right here at the highway up the hill. And so we just tapped into that for now. But there will come a time when we very likely will drill a well down here. And Mike taught us how to hook up a well, deep well pump with our solar stuff. So didn't you, Mike?
Yeah.
We've even got a video on that somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's that. And the other thing that we have to deal with, and these are all just things that you have to think about as you're building your preparedness plan. And the other thing, I have no idea what you're referring to. That's why we're in trouble all the time, because nobody knows anything. You're supposed to be the one that knows it all. You know what they say about know-it-alls? Those people that claim they know it all irritate those of us that really do. Typical Mike. Yep. Okay. So the other thing that we had to worry about on our preparedness list, I guess, besides the the heat and electricity, and then the water situation, which we haven't dealt with yet, but it's on the list. The other thing that we had to consider was the whole tornado thing. Because we've been down here, especially at night in the cabin when the sirens, and we can't even hear the sirens from where we are. I mean, if you went outside,
I heard one the other day when they were testing
that was like Wednesday morning, broad daylight, sunny out.
I suppose with your windows shut,
yeah,
and the thunder's roaring, and
but when there's a storm
siren,
coming through and they set off a tornado alarm 5 miles from here, it's like we don't hear it.
But we got the phones, and the phones are always alerting us. Our phones will go off about the same time, telling us there's a tornado warning or a watch or something.
Which is good, because here we're sitting in a in a cabin that's partly cement foundation and partly a pier foundation. So we're actually kind of above the ground in part of it where we're sleeping. It's like, well, if a tornado comes through here, we're just going to be gone with the wind.
No, I already made arrangements with the neighbor up the road. We can go up there if we know one's coming.
But so far they haven't. But they've been close. I mean, we've had some within a few miles of us here. But
I just do a lot of praying.
So as
a lot of praying.
We're going. So we have a. You got to do a timeout. Point 2. I don't even know what that is. So as we started, they had one at the bug out property.
Oh yeah.
Tornado started there over Mike and Adrian's place, and it just started there, and then it put down a path of destruction after it passed through that area. But
they got a video of it. I think she has a video of it.
Yeah, taking tree limbs out. Mm-hmm. So whenever, so as we're looking at the tornado thing, it's like, okay, we do want to have something for that. And if you've been following the videos that we do, we're in the process of starting to build a house right next to the cabin over here. And that's going to have a full basement in it. We're putting one room in the basement. There is the cement block walls are all reinforced with concrete and rebar. And the ceiling will be capped and reinforced really well.
It's drilled down to a shelf rock as well.
And we're anchored right to a shelf rock.
And we put cement in the blocks just to make it more solid.
So there's going to be one room that's a 12 by 16, and we wouldn't need something that big for a storm shelter, but we're also going to use it as a kind of almost a root cellar kind of an environment where we'll be able to control the climate a little bit and be a little bit cooler in that room, and we'll use it for food storage as well.
Yeah.
And I guess that way, if we get slammed into our
the fire started. I gotta put this
if we get stuck in our storm shelter for an extended period of time, we'll at least have something to eat while we're there.
We'll have food and water, and
so that's the process of thinking that we've gone through to try to. Now, if there was a fire that came through here the size of the one in LA, no, I mean we just burn to the ground like they're doing.
Well, we would have to evacuate.
Yeah, but really, I mean, those kind of fires in this area are just really non-existent, and I suppose it's always possible, but they're really pretty much on.
I mean, they're pretty good on the fires.
Yeah, I mean,
around here.
Every now and then they'll get brush fires going around here, but there's enough fire services around here. Usually they can get them handled.
Some people.
I mean, there's been some times where they've burned maybe 1,000 acres, but that's 1,000 acres out in a very remote.
They do controlled burning sometimes.
Yeah, and unlike California, they will do a controlled burn around here, and just to clear out underbrush in places where it's an issue. And then a lot of just farmers and landowners around here will do the same thing.
Yeah, they'll clean out.
I hear nothing. So anyway, that's that. Now, so we've kind of talked about the location. We've talked about, heat, electricity, steady, reliable sources of that, and the water issue and the storm tornado issue, which not all of you have to deal with that kind of a thing. I mean, that's something that's mostly South and Midwest mostly, and then to the South, I guess. And but just because of our region and our area and what happens here, that's what we have to deal with. That's one of the things we have to deal with. One of the other preps that we're really starting to look ahead to this year, especially, was the food preparation and food storage. So, and that's kind of exciting because we've got new and up and coming things happening kind of all the time with that. So we started with building a garden.
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
I was looking at my salsa.
Oh, grab one. Yeah. We will not be without salsa.
Yeah.
In the event of a disaster, we're going to have salsa. And we're going to have pickles.
Yes, lots of pickles. But I had
I don't know if you can survive on pickles.
I took some green tomatoes, and I mean, they were beautiful tomatoes, and I thought, I just don't want to waste them.
They just didn't get a chance to ripen up before cold weather hit this year.
And so I got him into some salsa. Make some salsa.
So what we've been doing is the first 2 years down here, we kind of, part of our goal for coming down here to this place was, to start growing and preserving and keeping food. And so, but we really hadn't been able to do that until this year. We built a huge garden and planted it up. Had no idea how well it was going to go, but it did phenomenally well.
It went really good.
It went crazy.
Yeah, it really did.
And we were able to either consume the produce or preserve virtually all of it.
Yeah, and KJ has a he asked if does our freeze dryer work on solar?
As long as you have a large enough storage capacity to keep it from depleting, because it will run all night long. And it's on ours is a large harvest right, so they require you to have a 20 amp or 20, is that what that is? I guess it's a 20 amp circuit breaker, and which is pretty good size, and dedicated to just that. And with freeze dryers, once you start them, you really got to run them all the way through their cycle without stopping them. And
or you can,
well, if you stop it, you need to pull everything out of it and kind of start over again. So if it's partially been freeze dried or partially dried, that's okay. Just you'd have to stick it back in the freezer and keep it there until you had your electricity back up. But to answer the question, as long as you have enough storage capacity in your batteries to allow it to run through its complete cycle, which in some cases, I mean, we've had some cycles run close to 40 hours. And
it depends on what you're.
It depends on
doing.
what you're drying. But so as long as you have the confidence in your power supply storage capacity, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. But if you think your freeze dryer is going to deplete your batteries and before it's completed its cycle, then that would be a little bit of a pain. So that's something you would just have to experiment with. Yeah. And I mean, we actually, because we have both the solar plant, which we operate probably 80% of our entire property here off of solar and batteries. And we run a couple of things that are kind of dedicated to just the grid. And again, we'll go into the grid thing at some point, why we have both coming down here. We're not completely 100% off grid. So we do have the grid power down here. So what we do is we run virtually everything that we've got off of the batteries, but then a few things we just run with the 15,000 watts of battery capacity. Mike, maybe you can help answer that question. Whether or not you think that's enough, if you're still out there, Mike. 15,000 watts of battery capacity, that seems like quite a bit. So, and then again, if you're running it, it will run all night and then all day and then sometimes all night again. And so if you make it through the night and you've got a sunny day coming up, that will replenish what size batteries. Okay, so he's looking into that.
Okay.
If you're able to replenish the batteries again when the sun comes out the next day before they drop out, then I would say probably you'd be okay. But again, it's something you just have to experiment with. Batteries rated in amp hours. Okay. Yeah, they're figuring that out. So,
okay.
So anyway, we decided to get so with the garden produce, we started out with, we're able to freeze it easily.
Right.
Yeah, which we've done a lot to the tomatoes because they were coming on so fast.
Oh, I couldn't.
All we did was just drop them in the deep freeze and let them freeze. They sound like cue balls rolling around.
So much going on that.
But then
a lot of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of it. So we're now canning and catching up to that.
Yeah.
But so we can freeze it for one. We can eat it fresh, which we did a lot of that. Some of it we just ate while we were picking it, and then
we freeze dried it.
And then we freeze dried it, and we are expecting delivery of a vacuum sealing machine in bags in the next day or two. I guess the box of bags has already got here, but so we're going to be preserving some food that way too. And the nice thing about the freeze drying and the canning is that you don't need refrigeration or anything like that once it's done. Okay, you just stack the jars of canned produce on a shelf, and the freeze dryers are just in a light. everything freeze dried is just in a lightweight little bag that weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And honestly, you talk, because I'm going to go get one and show you something.
Okay. So we have done a couple things with our tomatoes when we freeze dried them. Is that what you're going to show?
No.
Oh, I don't know what he's going to show. Anyway. Oh, he's coming back. Anyway, here's something. He's got an idea. I don't know what he's thinking.
Yeah. So here's a freeze-dried bag. This is blackberry powder.
Blackberry powder with
oxygen absorber, and we did it in July.
Yeah.
So it's just a Mylar bag, and they're vacuum sealed at the top. This has a Ziploc in it, so really once you break it open and start using what's inside of here, you can Ziploc it shut again and keep the oxygen absorber in there, and it'll be okay for a while.
They say when you open up the bags, they usually are good for 1 year. So
well, that's probably true. We've got some stuff that we opened up pretty quickly just to see how it was working, and we still have bags.
I've been using stuff up from these.
But the cool thing is, okay, this is the cool thing. Okay, this is the mechanic storage guy in me coming out. So these bags, they got a Ziploc right there, and then they're sealed just above there. And there's enough room here. You can take a hole punch and punch a hole in there and hang them on a hook.
No, I never
so
thought of
when
that.
we get ready to build our storage area, I'm going to put a peg hook wall that has big long pegs sticking out, maybe 16-inch long pegs, and just hang them on there. Hang them on a peg hook. Isn't that a good idea?
Well, I guess I just learned that idea.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's a good idea.
I used to package fishing lures when we had the marina and the bait and tackle shop and all of that. And so I made some, what would you call them, private label tackle, and would bag them up in little clear bags and put a label on top of them, punch a hole in them, and hang them on the shelf. And that was a good business. I like doing that. It was. So anyway, well, that's what we're going to do with our freeze-dried food too.
Right.
And Shelly is going to also, she's got a plan for building some big storage racks for that, and use like plastic snap lid type of totes.
Put them in bins.
Yeah, and that way we can label the bins with a date and what's in them and all of that, and slide them onto your rack.
Yeah, so I like that. That storage is. I like that idea because there's nothing going to get in them like dust and all that. Yeah.
So Adrian, you said good idea. What, punch in the hole and put them on a peg hook? I have two of the same systems.
No, he's talking about the batteries.
If that's what it is. Looking at the batteries.
Yeah, Adrian said
Yeah. See. And okay, so here's another.
By the way, Adrian, you tried some of the freeze-dried stuff. What do you think about them?
I don't remember what all she got.
She said, well,
I know all of her grandkids love it. They love the berries and the strawberries.
Yeah.
And
I make make a thing for them and bring it to them.
This year we're going to start, or this winter we're going to start actually freeze drying meals, like chili and soups and casseroles and.
Okay, Adrian's a fan club of taco tomatoes.
Yeah,
taco tomatoes. She likes them. She said that they're very good.
Yep.
So they're easy to do. You just cut the tomatoes up and then put taco seasoning on.
She said the cantaloupe is good.
She likes the cantaloupe. Yeah. I love that cantaloupe. It's just different, but it's good.
So it's like packing peanuts. Cantaloupe flavored
she
packing
likes blueberry
peanuts.
Cubes.
The blueberry cubes. Yeah.
They're bursting with flavor.
Really most all of the stuff that we freeze dried has been really good. It's been, the one or two things that we decided that we didn't really like was the okra, because it dries it down to a consistency of paper, which is not much.
I had,
and then the other thing that we weren't sure about, but we've got a bunch of them now, is the cucumber slices. And so I think
I have a plan with them. I'm just going to shred them up, and then I'm going to grind them up and put them in something else.
Yeah.
One thing I did the other day is I had bought some yogurt, and it was custard yogurt that had peach flavor in it.
Wrong direction here.
And I had some peaches that I took
Freeze-dried
and
peaches.
freeze-dried them, and I mixed them in there, and oh, wow, they were really good in there. So I let them sit a little bit in there.
And one of the other things that kind of motivates us too is we've got like Adrian is on the chat here tonight, Mike. They're down in Florida, but they come up here to the Backwoods Bug Out where they've got a backwoods place not too far from here that they're building up. And then we've got another daughter that lives up the road here, probably 20 miles from here. And then our son and his family live probably 30 miles from here. And, they're not quite as far along and their lives are busy, in as far as, looking at long-term food storage and things like that. So, a lot of what we're doing is motivated by the fact that we've got kids and grandkids that could use some of this stuff too. So, we're just preserving and freeze drying and canning everything that we can. And we distribute it out to them a little bit as they need it or want it. And so what?
Adrian, since you opened the
green beans, they were weird. Not what I expected. Well, they're raw too. So you got to understand that the freeze-dried green beans are all raw. So you can eat them raw, but they're better if they're cooked.
If you had like the green beans that are freeze-dried, you could do the casserole. You could make the green bean casserole.
Yeah.
And then mix them in there and cook them, and then.
But the whole idea is they're raw.
Yeah,
right
they
now.
are raw.
So they're going to be raw when you eat them, and they're going to taste raw unless you cook them. So, and we've cooked some of them, and we've eaten some raw, and they're raw. So you gotta cook them if you want them to taste not raw.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I didn't do carrots, but I would have done carrots. My
carrot crop didn't turn out too well.
They just didn't do good.
So my system is more.
They're still talking about.
And as long as you guys are still wanting to chat about that, we'll kind of keep the video going here and ramble on. I guess KJ or Ken, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I went ahead and subscribed you to our newsletter thing. Here the other day, so you're probably getting emails from us on things related to this. And I don't even know for sure who all's out there, but other people may watch this in the future. And if you want, you're welcome. And if you want, if you're seeing this video and you want to be subscribed to our newsletter, there's a link down below that you can go there and then go through the process of subscribing to. But if you want to send me your email address, then you can do that, and I will manually set you into the system if that's where you want to be. So yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, we're into this about almost 40 minutes, and
are they still talking about the? Well,
they might be, but I mean, you guys can exchange some information if you want, and continue the conversation on in other ways.
If you want to do that.
Also, I don't know if
anybody else have any questions about,
or whoever's out there, if you're on Facebook, we do have, I mean, you're welcome to save the website on the phone. Yeah. Okay, thanks. And, but if you want, you can also, if you're on Facebook, we kind of interact with a lot of people that way. If you want to, you can send us friend requests, and happy to add you as a connection to our tribe. So, okay, I'm going to give you about 15 seconds to come up with any other questions related to prepping or anything else like that. We're about a minute and a half away from 40 minutes, and I'm going to probably shut it off there unless someone has anything else.
Yeah, otherwise we'll talk some more about what you have questions on.
Yeah, but we appreciate more battery talk there. Okay, we appreciate the fact that you came on board tonight and joined with us on this conversation. And, it's something that I've got a friend that used to be a pastor of a church that we went to, and he's got a real good perspective on, a lot of people go to the fear-based apocalyptic kind of prepping activity. And we don't really do that. We're more into the practical, what is most likely that we're going to face. And if something pops up that, we look at that's out of the normal and the ordinary, and we say, that's something we should be concerned about, we'll be concerned about it. But if not, we're kind of basic, practical sort of preparation oriented. and he's real good at sort of leveling out the hype and that sort of thing. And I've asked him if he wanted to be a guest on one of these podcasts one night, and I think he will. Right now, he says, "Well, I don't know if I know anything about it." And I said, "Well, you know more than what you
like
know
the
a
fact
lot
that
in the area that people are kind of stressed out over."
and
So,
people are at that same place where
Yeah.
he's at.
and Ken is just looking for a more simple life. And you know what? There's a
Yeah.
lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
I think that when we decided to move down here, it's simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple.
Yeah.
And we all are. Yep. That's
Yeah.
and yep. Yeah. It's the rat race can wear you out. And
Yep,
so
it can.
so we're
I
happy
love
to do
it to wake up to hearing a bunch of birds. I'm a bird lover.
that. She had
I
to
love
rescue
birds.
one today.
Oh yes, I did. I had to put it in a box. It hit
Bird
my
in a box.
window.
Isn't there a movie about the bird box?
It
I think there is.
hit my
Sandra
window
Bullock.
and I put it in a box and just kind of let it be in there for a while. And pretty
These
soon
birds out on our back deck, they see the windows and it's dark, I guess, on the other side of the window, and they think that's someplace they can fly through.
well, I think they looked through the other window over there.
Well, whatever it is,
They think they can come through
crashing
here.
right into the glass.
I've heard them.
Probably 2 or 3 a day. And
Yeah. And that one I heard it thumped and it fell on the ground.
We're
and
living in the movie The Birds.
I could hear it thump on the ground, and I thought, oh no! I looked and it was laying there, and I thought, so I picked it up, put it in the box, had it in this box for a while, and then went outside, opened the box, and
She had to thaw the poor thing out.
it looked up at me, and it like, who are you? And next thing, it just took off flying, and that's what I learned, that when a bird hits the window and it's kind of out, then you just kind of help it.
Okay, so we've got a few people still on here. If you haven't checked in yet, go ahead and put your name or your handle or whatever you want to call it down in the chat box so we know who is here. And and we're gonna probably sign off. So anyway, simple life. Good way to end the video here tonight is looking for a simple life.
Mm-hmm.
And we're enjoying that. Maybe next week, maybe that's what we'll talk about. What does it mean? Live the simple life in one of these kind of places.
That could be a good
I think that would be a good one. All right, Ken, see you next week.
Bye, Ken.
Yep. So long, everybody. We're on the countdown to end. So here we go. The button has been pushed. The next button has been pushed.